Hey everybody, it's vanburman here. Welcome back to another video. My last one was obviously on the Final Fantasy VII First Soldier Battle Royale game being released by Square Enix. I actually wanted to do something I've been, thinking about a bit more intensively recently. I don't know if it's because of, I think it is actually, yeah, partly because of all the news announcements from Square Enix in regards to their Final Fantasy VII suite of games, I suppose, and just how that's all gonna fit together. But it led me on to the wider question, which obviously I've brought up a couple of times, and I would suggest if it's not something that you're interested in exploring with me today, then perhaps don't watch this particular video. So it really is just food for thought, I guess. And my main question today, and if you can have a think about it, that would be good, because I'm quite interested to know whether it's just me, whether I am being soft or expecting too much, or whether other people feel, people who do watch me more often, feel the same sort of way. So I guess my main overarching question is in regards to the game industry, and I think the main point is where is your pinch point in terms of how bad, quote unquote bad, how at what point do business practices, ethic, creativity become such a point where you can say, actually, I enjoy video games, I enjoy this pastime, this art form, if you will, but this is the point where I say, oh, you know what, I'm struggling. And I don't know whether it's just me, whether I have a much lower tolerance for that. Now, I'll say nowadays, yeah, maybe nowadays. I think I didn't when I was a teenager. I didn't really particularly understand a lot of the stuff, and my views on a lot of things have changed and adapted. I think just some key ones, I guess, being that sort of creative blocker, I suppose. At what point do I think that a game series is so creatively inept that I say, oh, this is just as bad as all the other reasons that other companies are crappy, and I should say something or feel some way about that. So I think, and also, that is a sort of similar thing with, this is like not a topic for today's video, of course, but it's something I have thought about quite closely in the wider scale of things for years now, and that is the issue of piracy and where that fits in. There's something I want to talk about on a video at some point, but that's not for today. But it is, a sort of like just wider issue that I have spent a lot of time thinking about. So, just for full clarification, I don't usually talk on issues or subjects until I am fairly, like, 90% of the way there, confident in how I feel about something. And I don't like, as a general rule, to jump to conclusions about certain companies' ideas, whatever that happens to be. I'm not naming any particular examples. And I like there to be like a well-established line of inquiry for the XYZ incident. I think my tolerance for that becomes less and less as we start to go down. And I think you'll hopefully understand that when we're going to talk mainly about Square Enix today, which I've done many times on the channel. So this is just par for the course, really. But the point is that, Square Enix can do something that I deem to be either creatively inept business, shady business practices, or, the worst one, terribly unethical to their staff. And, if anything like that comes up now, I am extremely quick to anger, because I suppose is if I say it's the right way. Not like anger though, but quick to denounce it, I suppose, and quick to feel a certain way about it because of all the history, because of all the previous stuff that I already have grievances for. Whereas, other companies that maybe I just deem a bit creatively inept that I'm not particularly that bothered about, then they do something else, becomes an issue, of course. Being Ubisoft, if you want my prime example for that one. But we're going to mainly stick with Square Enix. I will divert a little bit as and when with just a couple of different thoughts that I have on the overarching topic. So now this bit is purely subjective. There's no objectivity to this next bit. At least not the creativity side, because people can look and judge things as they wish. For me, the Final Fantasy VII remake is devoid of pretty much all the creativity that went into making the original game. That's my opinion on it. Some people may not agree with that. I have further issues. The fact that we saw sequels to mainline Final Fantasy games is, to me, a lack of creativity. To create clones of MMORPGs is a lack of creativity. Other companies can also be leveled with that. The fact that Final Fantasy XIV had to release twice, I think, is pretty strong evidence to that. The fact that Final Fantasy XV was meant to be a spin-off game for 13 is further evidence. The fact that 13 had 2 sequels. I know they technically are, but yeah. Anyway, not like in the, I guess in the traditional sense. Make it a bit different, the same but different. Yeah, and then going on to remake Final Fantasy VII with all the creative integrity of Kingdom Hearts. Okay, so that is where my personal thoughts on the creativity of Square Enix at this present moment comes from. I think very little, and it's an accumulative effect. And then, don't get me wrong, they've released crappy Final Fantasy cash grab mobile games before. Not an issue for me, and not really a sphere that I work in or that I have any real involvement or investment in. So, maybe you could say the same for this one. But I think it's indicative of all my other examples that I've had over the past 20 years. Can you believe Final Fantasy X is 20 years old this year? Was it released in March as well? Absolutely incredible. Talk about trying to make me feel old. But, it was that. And that's one of the I suppose that's one of the things that's made me think about this so much, is that, my God, I have followed this company and seen them, in my opinion, be creatively inept for 2 decades. That's like, at best, a quarter of my life on this planet. Absolutely incredible. And now we start getting, episodes. There'll be paid episodes. Final Fantasy VII Remake broken down into parts, pay per one. Paid for episodes in Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy 15 release story unfinished. Buy the rest to make up the rest of the story. Final Fantasy 14, I don't really have too much to say. It's an MMORPG. It's been done to death before. It's got some Final Fantasy avatars in it. Very good. And it is indicative of what we're seeing now. The Battle Royale game is part of it. That's going to obviously have microtransactions. Guaranteed it's free-to-play mobile game. This Ever Crisis is free-to-play mobile game with microtransactions. I don't know how that will work yet. We've not seen. But I imagine it's probably not very consumer-friendly. I know a lot of people may say, well, I'd be willing to pay £15 for that mobile game. So as long as it doesn't cost me any more than that to unlock all the chapters, I'm happy. That might be a way to look at it, I suppose. Yeah, fair enough. But it's a weird. Why would they go down the microtransaction route and not the just pay for the game? So my feelings are that there's something else there that's not quite up to scratch, up to snuff. And then, we're going to move off Final Fantasy to come back. We've got the Marvel Avengers game. I'm not really that much a big fan of Marvels, and when I first saw it, I wasn't that interested in it. Well, I was interested to see where they would go with with their microtransactions and with their development of the game, because all these games that are for live services, they only stick around as long as they've got the potential to make money. And I think we saw that with Anthem quite recently. And I think Avengers will obviously clearly go the same way, because it'll come to a point where it's not worth the money to invest in it of what they're going to get out in terms of microtransactions. It's a business, I get it, but it's still another creatively inept bit of work that they've done. I read something that they want to make the grind. They think it's too easy, so they want to make it more grindy. That's a great way of getting more players in, by the way. Square Enix, good job. And then you make all these. You have like was it the Spider-Man that was only for PlayStation 4? So you gate off certain content for certain consoles. I mean, that is all pretty gimmicky, crappy stuff, if I'm honest. This is a very minor point, of course, but I think the only time I am even like semi-okay with that, I guess, is like they did in Soul Calibur 2. So for the GameCube, you had Link for Nintendo, and you had Hayachi for PlayStation. I can't remember what they had for Xbox. No, I can't remember. But, that sort of thing makes it a bit more interesting. It's not a problem because you've got a trade-off there. The PlayStation guys don't get Link, but then the GameCube guys don't get Hayachi. I don't know. Whatever. But, yeah, that's a lot more of a savory. And plus, games are obviously a lot more of a better value back then. So, not to mention the fact that I don't know how many parts of Final Fantasy there's going to be. I know that the common knowledge or the common theory is that there'll be 3. How many episodes? Episode Vincent, episode Yuffie, episode Sid. Don't know, dear. Could well be. Episode Golden Saucer, just full of mini games. I wouldn't put it past them. I think that it's definitely in line to do that. I don't know whether they get away with this. Like I say, what's your pinch point? If they release a Golden Saucer DLC and then have you pay microtransactions to play on the arcade games, is that the point where Final Fantasy 7 fanatics say, you know what, Square Enix, you've gone too far now. And it's a difficult one, because I think with companies like EA, I think with companies like Ubisoft, Activision Blizzard, it's a lot easier to draw the line on where they've gone wrong. Ubisoft, creatively inept, same open world game with different skins, effectively. Far Cry game that's been released 3 times already. I imagine Far Cry 6 will be much the same. Sexual harassment, sexual assault of employees. Yeah, I think that's about it, isn't it? That's bad enough, right? Well, that's probably the worst out of all of them. And then you've got EA. Can release some good stuff. I don't know what's going on with their tax returns. It's not really an issue for me to sort out. It's an issue for governments to sort out. But, the buying up and destroying of creative studios is probably, how like Bethesda's deal with Xbox had to be ratified by every major country, continent in the world. I just don't think there's enough that goes on with a lot of the studios. I think, don't get me wrong, it's a big payday out for those smaller independent studios when they get bought out by EA. So, maybe that's their reward for making their great games previously. But, that's a bad business practice, in my opinion. And once again, EA stuff is a accumulation of issues, much in the same way that we see the same thing with Activision. Probably EA's more, worse for that with a lot of with like FIFA and all of those with the microtransaction playing cards, effectively. So yeah, I guess am I too soft for calling out, recognizing these issues within the industry? Wherever they fall on the spectrum. Should I only be bothered about a company's poor working conditions for the people that make these games, and like crunch, for example? Should I be bothered about that, or should I not care too much about crunch because that's just part of working for a company with long lead time projects? Maybe. Maybe there'd be better if there's a bit more transparency, but maybe you can let that go. Maybe those people's health and well-being is not as important for this medium that you enjoy. But then that all depends on where you draw the line morally, I guess, in terms of suffering and exploitation of people. I would say it's difficult, isn't it, to have like a moral hierarchy, but I would say that being okay with companies forcing their employees to work in a crunch period, over a course of working like 100-hour weeks or whatever to finish off a game in the last month, 2 months before the final version has to be released, is not as bad as what goes into making our mobile phones. Whether you've got a Samsung phone, Apple phone, I've got a Xiaomi, they're all made unequivocally under absolutely appalling conditions. In many cases, what is not far off modern day slavery. Let's be honest. And, we're all adults. And, I think obviously I've used far more of a more extreme example, because obviously I'm not comparing crunch to slavery. I'm comparing the moral amount of suffering that we're prepared to allow for our modern conveniences, and whether by omission or ignorance we all subscribe to that. I think probably the very fact that you're watching this video means that there have been a certain amount of that's gone on for you to be able to watch on your phone or on your computer or whatever else it may be. So yeah, maybe I shouldn't be quite as uppity about the crunch as other issues in the game industry, I suppose, which would be a fair point, I think. Definitely prove that I'm no better than anyone else when it comes to that sort of thing. Then obviously I know that I took a look at the CD Projekt Red apology video. Of course, made a bit of satire there for them, but I guess the saving grace is, they are required to pay for the overtime, for the crunch that they, I don't say made, forced, whatever strongly encourage their employees to do. And I'm sure actually there are many employees that not necessarily happy to do it, but understand that it's a necessary requirement, I guess. Especially when you've got these long, projects with such long lead time. No matter what project you do in your own work, you always know that potentially there's a bit at the end where you're going to have to put some real focus in to get stuff finished. So I do understand that. I think it's more the fact that there was, in CD Projekt Red's case, that it was the sort of posterity and the, if you like, almost virtue signalling. We're not like the rest of these companies that do that sort of thing. We won't be doing it. And then to go and do it. Two totally different, it's the hypocrisy, I think, which is the issue. Whereas, I think there's other companies that are very unapologetic to their business practices, like EA, with their surprise mechanics. They don't care. They'll go to any court in the land and defend it they'll defend it till the dying breath. Those microtransactions like that, promise you. So it's got a bit of conviction. At least they're a little bit more honest about it. Although, the very nature of it is shady at best. So yeah, I don't know if that helps with my question. It's been quite a long video, so I do apologise, but it is something that I spent a lot of time thinking about, and I like to keep myself in checks and balances. I like to surround myself with opposing opinions as well as my own, because I think that's the only way we really get a barometer as to how we feel. Make sure that we are like self-critical, I guess, of our own thoughts on things. And as you can probably imagine, 20 years is a long time to consider the Square Enix question for me. and I am very firm on what I believe in terms of that particular company and how they've treated probably the most important gaming series of my life. So, and for other people, it may be totally different. They may think it's brilliant, which, is fine. But I don't know. I feel as though it almost feels because I'm far too invested now, but it almost feels as though it transcends subjective into objective. I feel like it's so blatantly obvious that something's not right, or that things aren't being done well or creatively enough, that it deserves to be mentioned. But yeah, don't know. Maybe I'm just one of these antiquated, rose-tinted glasses, whatever, guys that longs for the ATB system and disregards anything else. I don't know. It's a possibility, but yeah, can't help the way that I feel about it. So just one of those. But yeah, if you do fancy sharing with me on it, I would be really appreciative to know. Hopefully I'm not alone in demanding more from the industry. And I think, a lot of this is sort of, like I said, brought about something I've been thinking about for a while, but also some of the conversations that I've had recently. And I think, if we as the consumer aren't willing to say when something's going a bit astray or a bit awry, then nothing will change. You get led down the garden path. And I think it's not the same thing. Of course, not the same thing. But, if I had a friend who was doing, something that I thought they could do better, or I thought they were being detrimental to themselves and, and their futures or whatever, I would feel really inclined to say something about it. And I think, if you care about, for me, if I care about a series and I care, but specifically Final Fantasy in this video, of course, then why should I not talk about it and say and voice the opinion of what I'm seeing when I feel as though it's so obvious? I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't. I feel like I hadn't tried to do my part in the change that I would like to see. And I think even though throughout the years, as much as I've criticised Square Enix, I feel like I've always been optimistic that stuff will change in the next one, which I guess is why I quite like to see them move up the installments, because each one there's a new chance that it will come out good, that it will be more aligned to the sort of thing I want to see. It doesn't, but there's every chance that it might do. I guess, I've got Bravely Default, which I've not played yet, but by having a look at it, like I say, it's a game that I really do want to play. The second one's coming out very soon. I think the demo's out on Switch now. So, maybe that is more where I should be looking for that type of game. I don't know. I think so, put in all honesty. But it would be good to, have another sort of, in my opinion, top tier Final Fantasy game, something to rival Final Fantasy X. I've not played anything better than Final Fantasy X since Final Fantasy X, even though 10-2 was okay. But mainly, I think just for the story elements, or the bit of extra story, I suppose. Whether that's worth it or not, I don't know. But yeah, until something can come out and beat Final Fantasy X, I will be here waiting, judging. I don't know. It's tough. Just to, yeah. Don't know. Anyway, yes. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think. I'll be more than happy to reply. If you've got challenges for me, that's fine. I understand. It's a bit of I think the last point I will make before I go, because I've tried to end this a couple of times now, is if the argument is I just want to play games and I don't care about the industry because, games for me is a hobby and I don't care about the politics of it, and that's how you feel, and, you can stand up and you're happy to say that, that's fine. You get a free pass, because I don't begrudge anyone taking that stance on things, allowing themselves to be swept away with the wind, so to speak. But it's a bit like complaining about a government or a system if you decide not to vote. You can't really be upset with the result if you've not participated. It's my opinion. It's fine to do that. But yeah, that's where I sort of think that it fits in. So, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.